talking about a unique product that is really looking at something different than most assessments. You see, the CVI is uncovering what we call our unique recipe of core values. Another way to say this is that we are looking at 4 human energies. In fact, I'd like you to write that down. If you have a pencil and paper, just write this down. The CVI is revealing 4 essential human energies that are there to show us who we are at the wired-in level, and very different, opposed to talking about personality type or talking about behavioral type of things. The CVI is measuring this unique recipe of core values, and we like to call it the core values nature. That's a coined term, a trademark term that we use. Core values nature, meaning 4 essential human energies that exist in human beings in some unique capacity. Now here's a picture of my CVI, and you're going to see on your first page 2 graphs. And whenever I look at a person's CVI scores, this is really all I need, just to look at these 2 graphs. It tells me everything I need to know. And in fact, all I need to do is really look at that top graph, and it gives me all the measurement points. You'll see the builder and the innovator are both tied at 22 points. Because the CVI is giving us a primary, a secondary, a tertiary, and a minor score, the CVI required me to take a 4th page that would break the tie between builder and innovator. So in breaking the tie, the builder came out first. My builder is higher than my innovator, even though you see the scores being the same there. And then you'll see the graph down on the bottom. In fact, let me go ahead and grab a pencil here, and I'll show you. You'll see on the graph the 4 core values here on the left-hand side, and then you'll see on the right-hand side what we call the 6 contribution types. Intuition and cognition are paired together, creative and practical are paired together, and community and independent are paired together. You'll see those same 6 contribution types right at the top. The intuitive and the cognitive, the creative and the practical, and the community and the independent. Now, why is this significant? This is another unique piece about the CVI that we just really love. You see, one of the most important things we believe that can be measured in a human being, it's not being able to say this is their personality type. So that's great. We understand maybe how somebody chooses to show up in terms of their personality, but see, we've learned that that's adaptable. We've learned that that changes given the environment. And in fact, that's why the accuracy of the personality and behavioral tools is in the 70th percentile or less, because it tends to change. It adapts. It's not that we lie, but it's, in a sense, we've learned in our lives how to show up to certain situations, how to use our personalities to get what we want, and that's precisely how people show up in interviews. I want a job. I'm going to make sure that I show them what they want to see so I can get the job. Well, see, this is what Lynn had to get past. That's why we had to go beneath the personality and behavior. That's why Lynn began looking to Maslow and trying to understand what is this inner bent and how can I measure it. Well, we believe that by uncovering these 4 core values, that we have also simultaneously uncovered what we call 6 contribution types. These 6 contribution types are measuring essentially where we should expect the individual to contribute in their life the most, where we will get our highest and best contribution back to this planet. You see, when you look at my score here, you see my independent, my creative, and my intuitive as higher than the others. It's very clear that this is the place where Dan is going to have his greatest contribution. And again, that contribution type is derived from the numbers in what we call pairs of these core values. So if you look at my builder score is 22, my merchant's 21. Well, that's what gives me the intuitive score of 43. The banker and the innovator added together gives me the cognitive score of 29. So I'm weighted way more toward the intuitive contribution versus the cognitive. And then the community is less than the independent. My independent contribution is more. I got that by adding my builder and my innovator. Got the community score by adding the merchant and the banker. And then I got the practical score by adding the builder and the banker together, and the creative score of the merchant and the innovator. So you see how we get those scores. That's what we want to show you here. So this is my CVI. Now, let's take a look even a little deeper. We like to think of this as maybe taking a little tour of the kitchen, taking you out of the front end of the restaurant and taking you back to where you can see a little bit more about the tools that Tailored Protocols uses in our best standard practice of coaching. This is our core values index key, and then on the next page you're going to see what we call our ladder. These two documents are the main tools that Tailored Protocols uses in our best standard practice of coaching. So let's walk through this together. You'll see the actual core values as power, love, wisdom, and knowledge. Those are the words in gold. You'll see the bigger, bolder words, builder, merchant, innovator, banker. You'll see those are what we call stylized words. They were put in place a long time ago because we had a sense that using power, love, wisdom, knowledge would be hard-hitting, controversial kinds of words that we wanted to soften them a little bit and also provide a way that would allow people to wrestle with the characteristics of what power, love, wisdom, knowledge means. Those words kind of stuck, builder, merchant, innovator, banker. And they're, trademark words with the CVI. But the actual core values that we're looking at are power, love, wisdom, knowledge. And you're going to see, too, a word next to each one of those core values. You'll see faith for power, truth for love, compassion for wisdom, and justice for knowledge. Let's talk about how this works, folks. I'll start with the quadrant of love. Since most of my coaches and consultants are love-based people first, let's go ahead and start there. First of all, we need to define what these core values are. Love is not codependency. Love is not being a doormat. Love is not kisses and hugs and always having to be jovial in the life of the party. We actually find that there are just as many introverted love-based people as there are extroverted, to use Myers-Briggs language, that it's not again, we find quite a bit of the behavioral tools. We find that all four of the quadrants contain the definitions or the characteristics of many of those tools. So love is not those things. It's not codependency. Love is working toward an inspired vision of what can be by nurturing the core values of somebody else and my own, in myself and in others. Love is a truthful exchange between people that is intended to be nurturing by nature. It is my deepest commitment to connect to you and to connect to your soul and to have a back and forth exchange that would result in growth in your life, that would result in some kind of contribution to you as a person. Love is that kind of truthful exchange. Now you'll see the word truth, catalyst, the catalyst of truth off to the right. Let's talk about the catalyst for just a minute. A catalyst is a substance that is used and mixed with another substance that causes an activation of some sort, but it doesn't become part of the substance. Another way to think about this is that truth acts like a filter. You see, love looks through the filter or the lens of truth to decide if it can have an impact in the world. Another analogy that we like to use is the dimmer switch on a dining room wall. If the power, the energy source, is coming through that switch and the switch is turned full on, then the light that comes into the room is fully illuminating the room there. But when we turn that switch down, then it is resisting that particular energy. And when it resists the energy, the light starts to go dimmer and dimmer. Well, the same is true between love and truth, between wisdom, compassion, knowledge, justice, power of faith. Between love and truth, if love comes into the room and truth begins to dim like that dimmer switch, then love begins to have a much harder time existing in that situation. In fact, we could even say that where truth does not exist, love has no place. Love has no way of being able to be expressed or to be able to have an impact and a contribution to make in the room. So if you've got your page here printed out, some of you do, some of you don't go print it out now, but I'd like you just to simply draw a line just from the bottom corner up to the top corner. And I'd like you to put the word anxiety. I'm just going to put an A here at the top. And what I'd like you to think about is what happens when love encounters truth that is being dimmed like that dimmer switch. When I am in a relationship with you and I'm telling you the truth of who I am and you're telling me the truth of who you are, and then somehow something happens whereby you're not telling me the truth anymore. You may be upset with me. There may be something that happened that I might have offended you. Something happened. And what happens to the love energy is it begins to feel like it's not working anymore. That's what this anxiety is. The anxiety is not a medical condition. It's just simply saying this isn't working. And it's a little warning sign that goes off. Now, those of us who are love-based people, sometimes we don't listen to that warning sign, and we find ourselves crossing into what we call our deepest fear. Now, let's define deepest fear. Each of these quadrants has a specific deep fear associated. The definition of deepest fear is that I am now being the opposite of who I know myself to be in this quadrant. Being. Do you hear the ontological sense of that word? I am now being the opposite of who I know myself to be. There is no love in me. In fact, there is even hatred, or I am being a non-loving person. When I am encountering a lack of this truth or a sense that I have given and you are not giving back, I find myself now getting very angry. And in that, I am in a non-loving place. Now, love-based people don't do a very good job tolerating that. So in their lack of tolerance of being a non-loving person, they then move into what we call manipulation. This is their conflict strategy. The conflict strategy says, I can't tolerate being a non-loving person, so next time I show up to be with this person who I am having a difficult time with, I'm going to smile, I'm going to shake hands, I'm going to try to be a loving person, and maybe if I do that, something will shift and change. Well, folks, what we know is that when I'm doing that, when I show up with a smile on my face, when I don't necessarily feel very friendly, I know that I am no longer contributing this wonderful energy of love. I am only manipulating. I'm pretending to be love. And when I'm doing that, I'm no longer contributing. So what we like to say is that on this side of the line, the only thing that is possible is taking and getting. That's what that TG stands for. But when we're up here contributing, it's very different. And the thing that allows us to see that we're actually contributing is that when we look through that lens of truth, it's wide open, and love has a place to be contributed in that situation. Now we've kind of divided the world in two. What we know is that in any given moment in time, I can be contributing my human energy, who I am at this level, and at whatever capacity I have in each of these four core values. I'm either contributing them or I am taking and getting. And what we've learned is that the CVI can now reveal to us that when one of these core values no longer has a contribution to make, that it is a time for us to now consciously shift into one of the other core values and to look for a different place to make our contribution. This is one of the keys of the CVI, is that it allows us to really see clearly how we can easily cross the line into our negative conflict strategy, and how we can actually cause ourselves to not move into the negative conflict strategies by simply shifting. Let's go ahead and move to wisdom and describe this. Now you know and you can see how the human operating system is revealed through the CVI. Let's move through a few of these others. Make sure you understand how it works. Wisdom. Wisdom is very discrete and different from the energy of love. Wisdom is staying curious and asking questions. It's observing the world. It's really trying to understand something and assess and solve. Wisdom-based people are assess and solve people. Compassion is the catalyst, and some people think this belongs in the merchant quadrant, but what we mean by compassion is to stay with passion. Staying with passion means that I am seeking to understand. It means that I'm staying calm and wanting to ask another question and wanting to really, really understand something and not jumping to any conclusions. Wisdom-based people are the best at problem solving and really trying to understand things. They get frustrated when people move forward without this kind of understanding, and I think they even very often they're seen as coming into the room and doing nothing. It's interesting, people who come into the room and you see that you perceive that they're doing nothing, very often those are the wisdom people that are simply just remaining silent and assessing and trying to figure some things out before they say anything. So wisdom-based people are like that. When compassion dims, like that dimmer switch, remember how the catalyst works? When compassion starts to go away, well, wisdom ceases to have a contribution to make. It has a contribution, but without compassion, it starts to feel the pressure that wisdom will feel when compassion goes away. And the anxiety will increase, and the anxiety will take us to our deepest fear. Now, when we cross the line as a wisdom-based person to our deepest fear, what is that? Remember the definition? The opposite of wisdom. I am now being, here's the ontological word again, not behavioral, I am now being or about to be foolish, which is the opposite of wisdom. And in my deepest fear of foolishness, either I am about to be that or somebody else is about to be foolish, I will now justify my movement into my negative conflict strategy. The wisdom-based person, if you look back to your most difficult conflicts, even over the last couple weeks, and if any of you is wisdom-based person first, you're going to see that in your conflict style that you become interrogative. You start to ask questions. It's interesting, isn't it? I'm still asking questions. I'm still observing. I'm still trying to figure something out. But you know what? It's no longer being driven by contribution. It's now being driven by a need to not feel foolish myself or to potentially cause somebody else to feel foolish in the process. This is what interrogation is. Interrogation is the taking and getting side of wisdom. It's me pretending to be wisdom when I'm really not contributing wisdom at all. Okay? How about power? Power is very discrete and different from love, wisdom, and knowledge. Power is just as innocent as love, wisdom, and knowledge. It's given a bad rap in the world. What we mean by power is that this is my intuitive energy, my gut sense that says it's time to take an action and cause a result. It's interesting, many of my merchants are very intuitive, but interestingly enough, their intuition is being bathed in lots of relational back and forth processing, and they're experiencing their intuition in that in that arena. A power-based person this is mostly internal. It is independent by nature, and it is an internal gut that says it's time to act, and then they act. They don't check it out with anybody necessarily. They just act. This can be very frustrating to the creative side of the world, the love and the wisdom-based people. But power-based people, they act. They don't have to think, and they cause things to happen usually immediately. And this can be an amazing, amazing contribution to be made in any given work situation or life situation. So power is catalyzed by faith. Faith just says I'm confident in my intuition, that my intuition is sufficient enough for me to now take an action, cause a result. Now, you can see the same thing is true. When I cross the line into my deepest fear, The deepest fear of power, remember, it's the opposite of power. I am weak. I am impotent. Do you hear just the intensity of that word? I am impotent. There is no power in me. When I am in my deepest fear as a power-based person, I will intimidate. I will pretend to be power. This is no longer a contribution of power. This is a taking and getting side of power. Okay? And then finally, knowledge. Knowledge is about information. This is my weakest quadrant at 7 points, and I always wonder if I do a good enough job describing this. My wife happens to be 26 points of banker, and we are very, very opposite in this way. Knowledge is about knowing the facts through research, measurement, proof, and records. It's all about the information. And to the banker person, it's not just about information alone, but it's what information can provide society. So bankers go to work finding the right information, writing it down, bringing it forth to the right people at the right time. And their contribution that they're making is one of having found and proven the right information. So justice is the catalyst. Justice is about right and wrong, ensuring equity, making sure that there is no waste. Justice is all about the facts and right and wrong. And when knowledge is being contributed, justice is being served. Justice catalyzes this contribution. But when justice goes away, when it dims like the dimmer switch, then knowledge ceases to have the impact it's supposed to make. And it crosses the line into its deepest fear. The deepest fear of knowledge is stupidity and ignorance. You see the opposite word there? And our deepest fear now leads us to aloof judgment. I will now hold on to my information. I will not share my information with you because you are being unjust. It is not important to you to have the right facts. And it is not fair when that happens. Therefore, I will protect my information, hold on to it. I will kind of remain aloof, if you will. If you want this information, you have to come and ask for it. And even if you ask for it, I may not be willing to give it to you because I've judged you as being unsafe and not necessarily interested in the right information. Therefore, I just hold on to it, and I become somewhat aloof as I grapple with all the right information in my world. Okay? So there you have it, folks. This is a very quick overview of the Core Values Index Key. This should show you and reveal to you what we call the human operating system, how we shift from contributing to taking and getting. And then it should also reveal to us, especially when we start getting into the numbers, as we will here in a minute, it should reveal to us that we have the capacity to shift, that when one of these core values is not working, we can kind of look up and decide and consciously decide which of these core values do I need to be? What do I need to access in order to make a contribution in the right time, in the right place, and what situation might be appropriate for that? Okay? Very powerful awareness that is created now with the CVI. Now, the ladder is just one more step in the awareness process. What we do here, folks, is we take a person's score and we put it into the ladder. Now, you're going to see from 1 to 11, we almost never operate in these core values. You'll see from 12 to 18 that these take a bit of effort for us to get there. Very often, we'll find that people leave these sitting on the shelf kind of sleepy. They don't use these core values very often. And then from 19 to 25, these are typically very solid scores. They're routine, they're energizing. People use them quite often. And then we have quite a few people that end up in the profound range. We call this profound whenever they have scores from 26 up to 36. By the way, we've never had anybody out of 350,000. We've never had anybody get a score of 36, and we've never had anybody get a score of 0 in any quadrant. And I learned that that is possible, but it simply hasn't happened yet, which is very interesting. I've had one person get a 1 in the banker, and I've had another person who got a 35 in banker, and both of those were in the last year or so. So you'll see the score spread out here for this particular individual. what we learned was that in their wisdom and knowledge that these were fully integrated in their life. When we asked questions about, could they tell me about a time when they had been the presence of this energy in their life, they were able to think of many times where they used these energies. When we got down to the power, the person here in this case was not able to see. Now, here's what we do. We do a little gap analysis, and once we started getting down in the points, and when we asked this person, tell us about a time when you were the presence of power in your life in the last couple of weeks, and as they were trying to describe this, they really couldn't describe a time where they were using this energy. Well, folks, this is what we want you to see. This became what we call a core value focus. And what we look for in our first reading and session when we walk people through the CVI is what we call a core value focus. And if we can find that, which we always do, what we have now is the ability for somebody to work on another human energy that they have a certain capacity for. Now, you'll see that we're not going to work necessarily on the capacity of love down there as much because it's farther down the ranks, but we look for the highest capacity that they have that feels the least integrated. In fact, I'd like you to write that down. That is kind of the rule of thumb when you're trying to find a core value focus with a CVI. You look for enough capacity. Look for the quadrant that has enough capacity that they can access it, but that feels the least integrated of those top 2 or 3, okay? And typically we'll find the core value focus in the tertiary score, but not always. Sometimes we find it in the second. Sometimes people choose to work on their very first because they have consciously warped away from some of those energies in their life, and it becomes just a real compelling argument for them to look at that again and to reintegrate it. Okay? So this is what the ladder is used for, is to spread the scores out and give us a sense of the gap. There's more to learn about the ladder. We use the every 3-point rule, which is the weighted nature of each of these core values. And what you'll find is that the higher the number is, the more weightedness that there is with that number. So every 3 points, we say, equals 1 order of magnitude shift. It's to give the understanding that there is, the farther down you go, there is greater and greater and greater magnitudes of shifting that is necessary, and energy that's necessary in order to shift into those other quadrants. And we can explain that in our training, but I want you to hear that there is even more to this ladder as we go through it in our training. Suffice it to say that it was very clear in this ladder situation that this person's core value of power was our focus, and that became the focus going forward for them in their coaching sessions.